Welcome everyone to the second of a three-part series on acting for a net zero future now, a series that we're proud to present in partnership with Schneider Electric. Today we're going to be talking about smart and sustainable homes of the future. Before we get to our three panelists who bring a lot of expertise on this topic, just a little bit of table setting. So COVID-19 still ongoing with the fourth wave. Knocking up against us has changed the way that we interact with our buildings. A lot of us are working from home now, spending more time at home, commuting less. It's also been a time where we've got more focused on getting to a net zero future sooner than later. Canada's ramped up its targets. The COP is coming up with the world nations set to meet in Scotland in the coming month. And the housing sector, the building sector, is a significant part of getting to net zero. In Canada, it's not as big of a part of the emissions pie as some countries because we've decarbonized a large part of our grid, but it is all in about 17.5% of our emissions. So a really sizable piece of the emissions pie that is within Canada. And in order to meet our climate targets, we will need to eliminate or virtually eliminate carbon pollution associated with our buildings. And that will include going down an extra tier to the embodied carbon in the materials as well. So it's a big stretch from where we are now. Good news is we have lots of technology, know-how, and capital to do this. And it's a good thing we have a lot of capital because there are a lot of low-hanging fruits we can take to get reductions in the order of 50% of energy use and savings. And going that next level is quite capital intensive. It's in the order of around $377 billion over the next 20 years, according to a model that our Director of Research, Ralph Torrey, has worked out. So it's a big chunk of that's the total price tag. So it's a lot of money, but it's within the range when you parse it out per year. It's within the range of what we spend per year on renovation in Canada. Home renovations are about an $80 billion market, and it's a small subset of that. In the sort of about a quarter of that. It will require a large public investment. It will also produce large benefits in addition to the more comfortable, efficient, resilient homes. It will also could also produce about 200,000 long-term, well-paying jobs in the building sector in Canada, and add about 2% per year to our GDP. So this is not about economic sacrifice. This is about creating jobs, and it's about strengthening our economy and about creating a more resilient and more comfortable housing stock. What does it look like? Well, the home of the future would no longer be burning fossil fuels to heat for heating and cooling purposes. It would be at least twice as efficient as it currently is, and it would, interestingly, as we electrify our housing stock and also make it dramatically more efficient, it would reduce the amount of electricity that we are currently using within the housing sector by about 50 terawatt hours per year. So what does that mean? That means enough energy would be freed up from electrifying our homes in tandem with making them more energy efficient to power half of the whole passenger fleet in Canada if it was electrified. So significant amount of power will be freed up, which is a bit counterintuitive. Many people think if we electrify our homes, we'll need to build tons more electricity plants. So we have with us today three well-informed panelists who bring a lot of expertise. We have David O'Reilly from Schneider Electric, and he knows the latest technologies that are actually working and available off the shelf to get measurable reductions and much more comfortable, better operating homes today, not in the future. We have Jennifer Weatherson, who's with Doug Perry Homes. She's out there, and her and her company, they're building awesome net zero homes right now today, and they're flying off the lots. And we have Sonia Winkleman, who's with the Canadian Home Builders Association, and she's heading up the net zero push from that angle, and is intimately familiar with the details, and also has a personal experience she may share with us through our discussion. So with that, I'd like to just pass it to the panelists, just if you maybe could do a brief introduction of yourself, your role, mandate, and what you're currently focused on, and then we'll jump into the discussion. David?
Thank you, Toby, and big thank you to my fellow panelists today, Jennifer and Sonia, as well as all those that have registered to listen in on this important topic. So my name is David O'Reilly, and I'm the Vice President for the Secure Power and the Home and Distribution divisions here at Schneider Electric Canada. Schneider is a French multinational corporation that provides energy and automation solutions that drive efficiency and sustainability. So our solutions address homes, buildings, data centers, infrastructure, and industry. And really our focus is to combine energy technology and real-time automation software and services that really empower our clients. I joined Schneider in April of 2017, and at that time I assumed responsibility for the Secure Power Division again, which that unit provides products and services for managing and maintaining critical power, cooling, for data centers, hospitals, airports, anything that's deemed to be mission critical and must always have uptime in its critical IT assets. And then earlier this year, in February of this year, I also took over the home and distribution division here. So this is our largest business unit in Canada, and it provides solutions for power distribution, management, within residential and commercial environments. So think of breaker products, electrical panels, wiring devices, which is really switches and outlets, as well as the all-important digital solutions for really enabling or empowering connected home offerings to wherein homeowners, business owners can monitor, manage energy use, and have real-time analytics. So super excited to be here. Thank you. And looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks, David. Sonia?
Hi, everyone. I am Sonia Winkleman, Director of Net Zero Energy Housing at the Canadian Home Builders Association. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So basically my mandate really with the Net Zero Home Labeling Program, if you think of it as there's carrots and there's sticks, and the stick represents the building code, I'm the carrot. So our Net Zero Home Labeling Program is really the consumer-driven way to engage the industry to voluntarily build and renovate to net zero ready or net zero energy levels. And so we're really excited about what we're doing because what I'm focused on right now is two big things. One is to roll out our Net Zero Home Labeling Program for renovations. We just wrapped up a big pilot in March, and we're waiting to hear if we also get another a big project on our table for the next 5 years to continue to do our work with net zero renovations, specifically with municipalities. So we're really looking forward to hopefully making an announcement within the next couple months on that. And then I'm also working on a Net Zero Leadership Summit coming up here in November, where we're going to be bringing leaders from across Canada together to talk about all sorts of different interesting aspects about net zero energy homes.
Thanks, Sonia. Jennifer?
Jennifer Weatherston from Doug Terry Homes. I am the VP of Operations. We are a builder out of Southwestern Ontario, about mid-sized production. We presently build to net zero ready spec as a standard. We build mid-rise and low-rise. Our mid-rise are completely electric, and they will be off. They'll have the potential to go off grid. They'll have enough solar to offset the energy demands of the building and the occupants within it. We presently do have a path to move to full electrification for our residents and our communities. A lot of what our focus is around carbon, whether it be embodied or operational, is a strong focus for us. Climate resiliency is huge. Providing stability and taking care of the planet is a major focus for us. So it's about doing the right thing for the right reasons. Every company needs to make money, but we're doing it because it is literally the right thing to do. Like I said, for the planet, for the home buyers, whether they realize what they've bought or not, but really building the housing stock and recognizing the future. And I'm very excited to be on this panel with Sonia and David. It's going to be a great conversation.
Thank you, Jennifer. So let's jump into it. David, can you tell us, what does the net zero home of the near future look like?
Sure, thanks, Toby. So when you think about the net zero home, really, as technology becomes more intuitive and innately embedded into our lives and our homes, the objective is now about enhancing the quality of life for both people and the planet. And Jennifer sort of mentioned that in her intro there, and I thank her for that. The building sector is now the including homes, is the third biggest contributor to carbon pollution in Canada. It accounts for about 13% of emissions, according to the latest available data. So eliminating emissions means investing in upgrades, design, buildings and homes, and maintenance of these, which really gets us on a path towards digitizing and electrification. It's important for us to be optimistic and to keep in mind that it's not about, when you think about a net zero home, it's not about consuming less, it's about consuming better. And that's the key, okay? So the future smart home is not just about the tech gadgets that we're all using. It's digitizing elements of the home and monitoring energy consumption to help, let's just say, homeowners, to control energy usage and have more readily available information and data analytics at their fingertips, so that you can reduce the impact on the environment and ultimately lower bills and energy costs. But it's also about enhancing comfort level for the occupants. It's about customizing, your living spaces for time of day, activity, mood, and really having to adapt to future technology and features to future-proof your home. And as obviously, and I know we're going to take the conversation here today, and as you're thinking about all of that, it's important to think about power resiliency, because part and parcel of what we're experiencing with climate change right now involves a lot of extreme weather events, right? So you need to have backup power in the form of a combination of UPS and generator, or UPS for certain areas of your home, right? So super important. But that kind of is really our thinking around around what the net zero home in the future looks like.
And the stuff that we can do in the near term, some of the low-hanging fruit, I understand it can dramatically increase energy bills. For instance, if we're talking about the Wiser technology, can you just tell us a little bit about how that works just for you? Because you use that at your own home, right? And you recently had a power outage and you had to deal with it, and I'd be just interested to kind of get your first-person perspective on how it actually works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'd sort of back up a little bit, and I'd say that it's important to kind of contextualize this also. So about a little over a quarter, about 27% of all Canadian homes today have at least one piece of smart home technology in them, and this was prior to the pandemic. But with that shift to work and home, where we're all spending more time there, smart home technology is clearly hooking a lot more people in. In a recent survey that we have, that we've seen, but 78% of homeowners say that they plan to purchase even more smart home technology, because of all of this time that we've been all fortunately spending locked up in our homes. So as we spend more time there, we need to really prioritize energy management solutions that are accessible for home builders, but also for home renovation contractors, and are easy for homeowners themselves to understand and work with. So when it comes to smart home technology, ease of installation and use, durability and sustainability, homeowners want the things that not only work but look good, and this is where Schneider's Wiser energy system comes in. So what our system does is it brings connectivity to the residents and gives homeowners visibility to their energy consumption. It's integrated with your panel and then connected through your smart handheld device. And what it does is it easily spots inefficiencies that increase your bills in your home. It can see all of the outlets, all the appliances, everything in the home, and it watches them 24/7, not only for consumption but to keep you safe. It can help estimate energy bills, and another really important thing, and I know Jennifer talked about this recently, which is to really take advantage of cheap off-peak energy to help drive savings. So that's kind of Wiser in a short version.
I know you might have got a good deal on yours, just because but would it have sort of paid for itself in your personal situation? If you
Yeah, I mean, I live in a relatively new home. So when I say that, I mean 15 years old, 20 years old. So, our home is well insulated. It has new windows, new roof, etc. But still, we kind of hit an inflection point where we just couldn't drive the savings any further. And so what the Wiser allowed us to do was really get the data analytics so we could see, you know what, yeah, there are more lights on than we think. There in the evenings, I'm not so sure if we need to, have the cool or the heat to this point. And by doing that, we actually did substantially save beyond what that ceiling that we'd already thought we'd hit. So super helpful to our own household.
Interesting. Sonia, you're leading the charge at the Canadian Home Builders Association. You mentioned you have the big net zero event coming up soon, and you've done some work sort of figuring out, who actually wants these homes, who's buying these homes, and it'd be just kind of interesting to get some insight there. Who are we talking about? Who's in the market for net zero homes?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, I want to actually just tag on to what David said about his numbers, because I think it's a nice flow through too. So talking about numbers, if you think about the average single family home in Canada built to the 936 building code, it uses on average 100 gigajoules per year. The net zero ready homes that we do, so before they put the solar panels on, are on average somewhere between 40 to 45 gigajoules. So they do on average decrease by more than 50%, sometimes as much as 80%. My own home that I'm going to be moving in is a semi-detached, and it's going to be 35 gigajoules. So thrilled about that. But here's where we talk about the role of the occupant, where the builders can only do so much with the home. Like they can drive the efficiencies down, like improve the efficiencies, put on the solar panels to get the energy generation. But then it's at that point where it really is up to the occupant then to really optimize that home and the energy usage. So I love what David was talking about, because that's where you can really start to see from your behavioral patterns where you're consuming the most energy and where there's opportunities to continue to decrease. So I think that's fantastic that Schneider has tools like this that allow that the occupants to take more ownership and control over their own individual consumption. So speaking of consumers, we did do some consumer market research before we developed our program, because we wanted to make sure we had the branding correct and the positioning and all the value propositions. And what's really fascinating is that we found that there's really 4 kind of target audiences, and they were categorized into the true believers, which are the greenies who are, you don't really need to sell to them. The cautious conservatives, who tended to be more the boomer group, who were people who have bought several houses. They know the difference between a quality constructed house and one that's not. They know a comfortable home versus one that's not. They're absolutely interested in good indoor air quality, and they're also very interested in reduced monthly operating costs, because they're usually on a fixed budget. The next group is what we were calling the concerned parents. And what was interesting about this group is that their focus was mostly on the health and comfort. So they wanted their kids, their bedroom to be warm. So sometimes you get rooms that are really hot in the summertime or really cold in the winter. So that comfort level was really big for them. The filtered fresh air was really big for them. So those were features that they loved about these houses. And then the environmental piece was certainly there as well. And because of the age, that's also typically where the millennials fit in, right? And so that's where the millennials coming into that cohort were definitely very focused on the environmental footprint. And they're also the very technical savvy ones, right? So the technology that Schneider offers, they're the group that would love to have something like that so they can see what's going on their energy consumption. And then the last group was what were called the working class realists, who were the folks who typically at this point, because there still is an upfront cost for these houses, would likely not be able to afford to get into that marketplace at this time until our industry is able to figure out how to reduce those costs, because there's extra installation, better windows, better mechanical systems. So at this point, there still is an increased cost to get into these homes. But yeah, we're just finding that the positioning, the marketing that we're doing is really resonating. We've got some really great social media marketing that we're doing some A/B testing on to see how technical we can also get with the audiences. Like, do they kind of, stop paying attention when we get too techie? But we're finding that they're actually reading a lot more, and it seems that they're staying on our pages longer, and they're very interested in getting more information. So we're going to continue to get more technical with them and explain it and educate them. And we're finding it's working really well.
And in your own home, that's they're going to be 35 gigajoules. Hopefully they'll be ready by February if they're on time.
Yep.
Semi-detached. You're looking into options as well, so you'll have backup power via your electric vehicle. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is just a personal thing. Of course, I'm in this space. I dork out over this kind of stuff, so I want to be as energy efficient as possible. So my plan is it's going to be net zero ready when I move in, but I want to live there for a year just to get a feeling for what my consumption patterns are like, as well as my electrical vehicle consumption, so that I can size the electrical panel, the solar panel system properly, so I don't either oversize or undersize it. And with my aim to get to net zero, not just for the house on its own, but I also want to include my EV in there as well.
Interesting. And just before we go to Jennifer, we have a couple of questions. One that's related to this, but it's for David. David, is the questions from Peter Darlington, is that panel capable of load management? We spend a lot of money on electrical service upgrades and are looking for a solution. The electric panel.
Yep. Thanks for that, Toby and Peter. We can do load management. I think that we need definition around that, but it's also, it comes down to how it's planned at the beginning. And again, what Wiser does for you is it's integrated with the panel and your standard, breaker configuration, but it provides you with where the load inside the home is being used. So I guess by that definition, yes. But I hope that answers, but I'd be happy to also take that offline with you, and we can connect.
And this is a question, I guess both for anybody, but you're talking about homes, 100 gigajoules average home being built versus 35 for a really net zero ready home. What if we go to the next level to passive house, with HAUS, that's getting down quite a few bit more. And is there still a need for these kind of smart devices, or are if we were looking for scale, are the passive house part of the solution? Do they work with smart devices, or is it better just to build this sort of net zero ready with the smart devices?
So was that question for me, or that might be better for Jennifer from the home builder side? Yeah,
we can come to Jennifer, and it's a nice segue for you, Jennifer. So maybe just kick off with that, and then we'd like to kind of get a sense from you. You're building these homes, and just kind of get a sense of is it working out? How's it working out? Who's coming and buying them?
Okay, I'll kind of lead into that, and then I'll circle back to the question about passive house. So like I said, we're building in southwestern Ontario. Everything is net zero ready. We are prepping it. It is ready to go. We have homeowners, I would say, based on market demand, people are out looking for houses right now. They can't get a house. So that is driving a lot of the sales that builders are seeing these days. But I would say at least 5 out of 10 customers are aware of what our practices are from a home building side and the energy efficiency. The funny part is even though the houses still have a bit of gas in them, an average code-built home uses something about like 10 gigajoules of GHG in a home. When you go to dual fuel and you use like an air source electric heat pump with a gas backup furnace, you actually drop down by 80% down to about a maximum of 2 gigajoules or 2 tons of GHG on an annual basis, which significantly is a reduction. So as we start to phase out towards electrification, it's a great in-turn step. There's challenges. I mean, for us, we don't charge a premium to go to net zero. We've looked at our processes, our products, our efficiencies, and worked with our manufacturing partners to drive down the cost to be able to offer that to our home buying market at no additional charge. That is the values of the organization and the company itself. And I fully support it. I mean, when I got into net zero, my whole mandate in practice was essentially, this has to be repeatable. It has to be off the shelf products that people can use and understand. It can't be a spaceship in a basement that people are afraid to touch or even live in the home. And so a lot of our focus has been around that, and the energy efficiency piece has led us to the carbon reduction piece on the embodied side and using materials that have less in it as we operate. But then now we're getting much more into the embodied carbon side of things. So it's been an evolution, but it's always, the main focus has always been trying to utilize off-the-shelf technologies. I would say the biggest challenge for builders to date is because you focus on efficiency or conservation first when you start building. So you're optimizing your costs, you're addressing the unintended consequences. The biggest challenge to date still remains mechanical systems, because you're really going from a 45,000 BTU furnace that blasts off, never reaches the end room and turns off, and then you have uncomfortable people living in their homes. Versus these homes, which is under 20,000 BTU, there's not a lot of mechanical equipment out there that meets the needs of these homes, that runs longer cycles, like a multi-stage where it's continually running, providing mixing of fresh air. And I think with people working from home nowadays, understanding that their home is now uncomfortable, and they didn't realize it because they've never sat in their home office next to that 2-pane window for a long period of time, it started kind of creating this surgence within the renovation market, which is amazing, but scary at the same time, because I think something like 85% of our housing stock is pre-1985. So from an efficiency standpoint, there is huge work to be done on that side of things. When it comes to comparing passive house to net zero energy, I'm probably not the best person to provide an opinion on that, because I think that there is opportunities in both programs, but from a simplified approach, what the Canadian Home Builders Association through the net zero labeling program has done is made it simple. We went after mass adoption with products that are easily attainable. We made it simple for builders to be able to follow the path, to get the label, to have third-party verification, which is huge with buyers, because they see so much greenwashing and everybody's got a label that says this is green and it's not. Having third-party verification and labeling is huge for that opportunity. So I think that, my focus is still and always will be towards net zero housing stock and practices from a building standpoint. I see challenges with passive house, and but that's me. Maybe Sonia can.
I was just going to say, Toby, can I add to that if
Yeah.
I might? So I think really, if our ultimate goal is to reduce our energy consumption, thereby also, of course, reducing our carbon or emissions footprint, if you take a look at the opportunity, it really is with the existing stock. So I don't have any interest in quabbling over 1 or 2 gigajoule difference between net zero or passive house. If someone wants to do passive house, fantastic, go for it. But I think really the reason we're moving on to net zero renovations is because we absolutely have to try and tackle that space. That's a huge opportunity to reduce our GHGs. It's a huge opportunity to increase comfort and indoor air quality, and reduce monthly costs for people. And so I don't care which labeling program a builder uses, as long as they're improving their homes, but let's definitely tackle the renovators. They need as much help as they can get.
I just want to jump in on that too. So, and you're both absolutely correct. Most existing homes are not energy efficient. And when you think about new construction firms, there's very few that are as forward thinking as Doug Terry. It's actually new home builders that are thinking this way is a very small part of the annual building stock. 80% of all buildings that are going to exist by 2050 are already built today. So to Sonia's point, we really also need to be thinking not only about new homes and getting new home builders to move in this direction, but we need a lot of retrofit capability in the next generation of home energy management. And it takes various forms, but you need to be thinking about fitting insulation. As Jennifer said, removing gas boilers, replacing with heat pumps and networks. But the retrofit piece, Sonia, I couldn't agree more. It's going to be a huge piece.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. I think that's the number. 377 billion between now and 2040. If we ramp up from 1% retrofits a year to 4.5% retrofits a year and make them deep and electric, it's a big opportunity. Jennifer, you mentioned that you're building these homes, these net zero homes, and people are buying them. Are they paying more for them? Do they cost more?
They do not. Even one of our mid-rise building that's fully electric, that will have solar panels on it. So it is an affordable apartment living building. I think there's 66 units total between the two buildings themselves, and we'll put the panels on And we work with CMHC through that for the financing to be able to develop that was. So they not only have better mechanical equipment, so it's electric PTAC units ducted, so you've got fresh air moving throughout the suites. We've used a graph-and-stone paint, which is a lime-based paint, which removes the VOCs and improves the indoor air quality. We've compartmentalized the suites, so you don't need a central cooling system. What it does is it allows the occupants to control the air within their suite with their own ERV or the lungs of the home, as it were, so that it's providing consistent air. But it's not an additional charge. They're working fantastic. We do have homeowners that have put panels on. Quite often, they're not putting panels on through the builder. We're just making the house panel ready, because there's generally opportunities through grants or funding or incentives that are actually geared more towards a homeowner going in afterwards and putting them on themselves, which, as Sonia pointed out, it's really great to wait a year, see what your loads are, where you're spending the energy, because when in a net zero energy home, that's exactly the point, is you move from 54% of energy being related to the operation of the home to now you as the occupant are the one that are the largest load in the home, and having flat screens and computers running all day is actually costing you more than the house to operate.
Sorry, if I might, Jennifer, if you can explain to the audience the difference between why you're able to not charge more for this upgrade to net zero, because there's been a lot of work behind all that. It's not just an easy fix.
I've always been in the mindset it's a team approach, and generally I treat our trade partners and our manufacturers as external team members. They are as much a part of this as we are. So what we end up doing when we decide to do something off the wall and crazy is we bring our trade partners in and we sit around, because they are the experts in their space, and you solicit them for, I need to get here. How do we do that? And you start kind of going through every element of construction and evaluating where the opportunities are. What can we do better? What can we lean out? What about our processes and our operational costs? Is there opportunity there? And then just working with them to find the opportunities to get there. And is there a bit of a premium? There probably is. At the end of the day, I can almost guarantee that. But as a business, we have made the moral decision that while every company needs to make money to be operational, at the same time, you can make money and still do the right thing by providing homes that are ahead of building code, that will add value to people's lives, whether they realize it when they bought or not. But indoor air quality, comfort, health, wellness. I mean, they say that we spend 80% more time indoors now wanting to be outside, and that's why people are putting in massive windows, which I hope are low solar heat gain, triple pane, but that's another topic.
Jennifer, let me ask, I just have a question too, Toby, if I may. So generally, standard stock homes today that are not net zero are more efficient than, say, homes were 10 or 15 years ago. But how much better now is your net zero home model today in terms of overall energy savings? Like, are you able to provide like a cost estimate for our guests?
So net zero is roughly 1 to 2 code cycles, just because we've been advancing. Some of the homes I've worked on used about 110 gigajoules of energy when they were code built, and we've got them down as low as 30 gigajoules. The occupant load really does become the biggest challenge. And that's something builders struggle with, because you sell someone a home and say, we have modeled it, we have used the data against what the government has told us to use, and with this amount of solar, you are going to net out. So it will go back to the utility provider based on the opportunities within the marketplace. But then they don't. In past numbers, net zero ready could range about $15,000 to a builder to do that application. And if you want to go full solar, you're probably 25 to 30,000 in solar plus the roughing components of it. So $15,000 to get a house to net zero ready isn't as challenging as it might seem to get towards when you're building, if you work with trade partners and look at where the waste is. And even this past year with the pandemic and the price of lumber going up 75%, ironically, XPS on the outside of your home, moving the air barrier to the outside, actually became more affordable. If a builder was watching his numbers, he could have actually gone to a net zero ready home and paid less to build that house than he could have to build it to code.
Wow.
Interesting. And at the point you made too, I think it's sometimes underappreciated the air quality angle. And I know we just did a retrofit of our basement, and now the air quality in our basement is better than the ground floor. And so it makes a difference, you know, for my wife's home office is down there, and it's now that we're spending so much time, it makes a big difference. And I don't know if there's better metrics and ways to make that obvious to people. We have the monitor now. We didn't have it before, but it's interesting. So as we've been talking, there's people in the chat that are here have been solving problems, creating new marketplaces. I saw Joey was retrofitting a 27-unit apartment building, and Gail from the Bow Valley Green Co-op has connected with him. And so please use the chat to solve problems. If you have questions, you can throw them in there, or even better in the Q&A. We did have one question though, Jennifer, not to put you on the spot, but in the Q&A from Alan saying, Alan Slavin, I was on Doug Terry Homes website and can't find anything about net zero homes. If it's a major focus, why is it so hard to find?
Yes, so I joined Doug Terry back in November of last year, and the one critical piece for builders to sell net zero is to get it in front of a customer and put it in a language that they understand. No disrespect to any of my colleagues or what's been done in the past, but our website is brutal. It is on there. You have to dig to find it, which that's going away. We actually are working on a major overhaul of our website because consumers, and there is a ton of literature like on our website. If you can find how it's been navigated, there are videos on there about best practices for wall applications. There's testimonials, there's studies, all kinds of data, but it's not out in front. And that's the challenge that I have with our marketing program. It is broken. Consumers also don't have a lot of free time to go and read. Like our website is like a library. There is a ton of information when you find it, and you could spend hours, but I don't even have hours to go reading through things. I have a daughter, and that takes up time, and I enjoy spending time with her. So a lot of our focus is going to more video and imagery, things that people can quickly look at something and it resonates with them and understand that this means that it impacts my lungs, or this is something that impacts my comfort, or even a hat on a little house icon with boots on it. It suggests to some degree that my house is insulated or it will be kept warm in the wintertime. And from a comfort aspect, that's entirely it. I mean, you can have a house non-operational for 3 days that's fully insulated and the temperature won't fluctuate. I mean, there's times where your house will be colder inside because it's gone through seasonal changes outside, but it's held the temperature. And they always joke, set it and forget it. Like, you don't need a fancy thermostat to play with that goes down at night. You're actually consuming more energy because your house is holding on a regular basis. But yes, our website, I'll apologize for that. And I'm not going to throw any of our team members under the bus, but in about 8 months time, when you come back, it will be a completely different approach.
But the reason I was asking the question too, it's just we're using lots of terms here: net zero ready, passive house, and normal people don't speak this language. You know, they're just so. David or Sonia, is there, if you're trying to describe this to to just normal people, in terms of what we're talking about with these better homes, better, smarter homes, what are the kind of languages? Like some of those things you were talking about, the imagery, using little symbols and stuff, but besides labels, what kind of language do we use so that people can understand what we're talking about?
I'll take a stab at that one, because that's actually what we're doing for the whole building industry across Canada, is trying to provide these sales and marketing tools to the builders and renovators so that they don't have to come up with the language themselves. And that's why we also did the consumer market research. So we do have a bunch of resources on our webpage. We've got 4 different social media channels, a YouTube channel with videos, and we're making more videos to explain it in more layman's terms. But yeah, basically, many of these programs, Passive House included, I've been paying attention to the chatter, focuses on making the envelope more airtight. So if you think about it, there's actually a great visual that Enercan used to put out. It was a big black circle. And what it was is, when you get a blower door test done, they come and they put like basically a barrier in your front door with a big fan, and they depressurize. So they suck the air out of the house. And that way, what they do is they can go around the house and find all the holes. And also this machine will also help you to calculate how big, like if you were to take all those little holes and cracks and put them together, how big that hole would be. So a 1980s house is usually pretty large, and then it goes down. I think the R2000 hole is like this big, and then the net zero hole is like that big. So what it's basically trying to say is there's less opportunity for the heat to escape in the wintertime or for the cooling to escape in the summertime. So you really want to make it, it's kind of like if you think about when you go skiing or something, you want something that keeps your heat in, but you don't want to sweat. So it's like, we don't want to wrap everyone in a plastic bag, but what we want to do is ventilate, get the fresh air in so that that circulates and we don't get sick building syndrome, which is why it's really important, whether it's a new home or a renovation, that you've got a trained and qualified builder or renovator doing this work. This isn't like a net zero renovation is not a homeowner do it yourself, because there's something called building science and house as a system approach, which means if you do this, it's going to impact that. So for example, really simple, if you put in really good windows, that also can actually impact the sizing of your mechanical system. And if you don't know these different relationships between all of the different assemblies and components of these houses, you can actually cause problems. So if anyone's heard about sick building syndrome, BC suffered from a lot of that. What is this, about 20 years ago? And it was really bad because they didn't consider the ventilation in the homes. And then there was also, you had, moisture kind of trapped in between the walls because you were putting the barriers in the wrong places. And so all of a sudden you've got these mold and that ends up deteriorating the home, and even structurally there could be issues. So there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. So, I mean, people are saying, oh, this is easy. Well, not really, actually. If you don't take the courses and understand the building science and how all of these things work, you will potentially do something wrong. And we don't want to do that, because we don't want any of the programs, whether it's Passive House or Net Zero. I'm sure nobody wants these programs to have bad names because something has gone wrong. So we definitely need to make sure that anyone doing these things knows what they're doing.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm going to move to the next question. This is a question for all of you. We'll start with, go to the same order. David, Sonia, Jennifer. What's coming down the pipe that you think will most consequentially shape the demand and supply of, I was going to say net zero homes, but now I'm going to say homes that are healthier, where the air is cleaner, that are warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer.
So what market effects are going to, Toby? Sorry, what just?
Yeah, like what's coming down the pipe? I mean, we have right now, there's $2 billion of kind of money that's being given away by the feds and provinces for a little, $5,000 here, that kind of stuff. There's things that I'm sure you know about on the technology side that they could be game changers are coming down the pipe. There's things on sort of modularization. But I guess maybe on you, the technology side.
Yeah, so absolutely. So there are government incentives, but I think really what's driving everything here is that there's lifestyle incentives that we're all seeing. I mean, the shift to hybrid work, maybe not purely remote work like a lot of us have been dealing with, is not necessarily going away. And so what we're finding is that our homes really have to evolve. And we've got to address the challenges around what we're seeing, because we're in these living environments so much more than we were before. So, homeowners are thinking about sustainability and reducing their climate impact. They're thinking about resilience. So again, we're starting to see more and more of the extreme weather patterns that are really putting pressure on the resilience of the grid and power usage at home. And so we want to be thinking about safety and uninterrupted power and of course efficiency. I mean, there's just direct consequences with the increased use of electricity and the consumption of electricity. So we need to be thinking about not necessarily using less, but using better and smarter. And then wrapping all of that up with how we make ensure cybersecurity within our home, right? So we have some terrific innovations coming. So Wiser is already here, which provides homeowners again with the data and analytics that they need to see what's happening in their home and to really monitor and project how to make that home more efficient. We're super excited. Towards the end of 2022 and 2023, beginning of 2023, Schneider will be bringing its Square D Energy Center, which is a true grid-to-plug solution. And you can see that now. I'm not going to go into it today because we haven't launched it, but you can see it has been launched in both California and Europe for us. Terrific fanfare and great uptake. So we're super happy with that. And if you go online to our website, you can see the Square D Energy Center and see what that can offer. Those are the points that I would make on that.
Great, that's interesting. Sonia, what's around the corner?
Yeah, there's some great stuff coming, but I'd say I probably have top four. Number one, I would echo what David said about just the more extreme weather events, the more consumers are going to get in on this, and they're going to be asking for more efficient products. So that's number one for sure. Number two is, I don't know if anyone's aware about this, but the national building codes are currently going through a very intensive change, and that's going to be released, I believe, by the end of the year, where the target is net zero ready, which is the tier 5, because they're releasing a tiered building code, and that's supposed to be coming out. But the overall objective, according to NRC, is to get to net zero ready by 2030 for all homes. That would be the requirement. So that'll be spurring some interest from the industry for sure. The third thing is the incentives that are currently cropping up everywhere. There's federal incentives, provincial, municipal incentives. So I think that's certainly going to trigger some interest. And then the last one would be the program we're hoping to get funded here coming up shortly on net zero renos. It's going to be pretty significant, and the goal is that we can learn how to efficiently and cost effectively do deep energy net zero renovations and share that broadly across Canada so that we can get more people understanding how to best do this with the various archetypes that exist out there and really speed up that process.
Toby, thanks, Sonia. One of the questions I saw in the chat, I believe it was from Gail, and I think Gail is working on a mid-size or mid-range multi-tenant building and trying to put solar on top. So we'll figure out how to reach out to Gail afterwards and provide her with some of the ideas and dialogue, which is specifically what Sonia was just talking about for how you can position this. I'm a little bit surprised. I don't know what jurisdiction that she's in, but I'm a little surprised that wherever she is, she's getting a little bit of pushback on solar, because most jurisdictions today, as Sonia was just saying, are super anxious. Jennifer was also outlining, super anxious to see buildings have that capability so that they can use it for their own, structural consumption, but also put back into the grid if need be after. So, yeah.
I would probably kind of hesitate on that comment because most utilities aren't all excited to work with builders going to net zero. There's one, I won't name names. They know who they are. They are a challenge. They have been a challenge since day one. And that's the funny thing. There are utilities who will work with you. There are two utilities who will not, who don't want to recognize the energy that's going back into the grid as an opportunity against infrastructure. And even some municipalities could look at the opportunities with the water savings and energy savings and what they're putting in at the municipal level and the opportunities that it creates for them. But the other challenge you might have too, not knowing her building, is from a retrofit side, being able to put the loads of the solar onto the roof as well. And that's where the CHBA renovation pilot and the MERBs and even Energy Strong and some of the stuff that's been done in the Netherlands is phenomenal information to dig into. Kind of jumping back to some of the challenges that I see that are major for us as builders, climate resiliency, again, like everybody said, that's number one. I mean, we've looked at the tornadoes that happened in Barrie and roofs being torn off. I know our team is working with numerous associations on a climate resiliency detail as we presently already do it. And it's not thousands of dollars, it's maybe hundreds of dollars. So that's one piece. We also know that what happened in Texas, we don't want to happen here. And so ensuring that our buildings, and I like to do things the hard way. So we start with the most challenging building. And if we can do it on there, then we can do it large scale. And so we're doing it on a mid-rise building where we want to take it off grid. And whether that is full solar and some kind of cogen backup or batteries or something like that, we are working through the way to do it and still be carbon neutral on those. But I think the other two big things is carbon tax. The government loves to tax us. That's not going away and it's probably going to get worse. And we all know that as certain as death, that electricity will never go down. It will always go up. So as costs continue to increase, if your wages aren't going up, you need that stability within net zero homes so that you can start forecasting and knowing where your loads are and controlling what you're using. But the other impact is definitely code. And what Sonia mentioned about that tier 5 is actually very difficult to get to. And as a leading builder who is already doing leading edge practices, we don't even meet tier 5. So I cautiously approach code officials with just thinking through the benefits, because you can take it to R80 in an attic and spend an extra $800,000-$900,000. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't save the customer more than $25 on their electricity bill, what is the benefit? You've just made the house more expensive, and in turn, you haven't actually reduced the energy in the home. So
That's interesting. The point about the carbon price. I know that the federal government, they're greening their building portfolio, and they now just take the carbon price that's in the plan, $170 by 2030, because when they're building or doing anything, it's going to last more than 9 years, and it makes a lot of things economic really fast, because that's 5 times higher than the carbon price is right now, and so that makes natural gas way more expensive. It makes any kind of electricity from carbon source.
well, yeah. And in a house that has a little bit of natural gas, you already question your meter, and the associated admin costs are already more than the actual gas that you're consuming. So you start adding the tax and increasing it that high, people are going to be taking gas meters off their houses.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we are getting close to time. We have there's a bunch of questions flying in both on the chat and the Q&A, trying to keep up with them. But maybe we can just rapid fire go through some of the Q&A questions that are here. And then we can get to the last question that I wanted to ask each of you in terms of one big call to action to make smart, sustainable homes a reality much sooner than later. So Patrick is saying he's replaced all his windows to high efficiency. Is there someone who can assess his house for overall system performance? David?
And so his question was, what does he do next? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah, someone can help him.
So yeah, so thanks for that. So Patrick, so good for you and congratulations for doing that. I think you'll notice a substantial difference in your home will be more efficient. I think the next step now is back to my repeated statement, which is it's now about using and consuming better, right? So I would really encourage you to look at truly making your home connected using something like Wiser to allow you to have visibility to what's on, what power is being used, and the data and analytics approach can really help you take the physical things that you've done now to another level. I found it really interesting, and I must apologize. I think it was Megan on here said there's a lot of jargon, and she was not the only one. You're absolutely right. I want to apologize for that. There's a lot of jargon in the building, construction, and certainly the electrical world. And for those of us that are in it, it's even hard to keep up with sometimes. So it's all about consuming better, doing the retrofits to the physical building, and then connecting the home with a smart device so that you can see and project what energy your usage is looking like, where it's being consumed. And I think you'll really be surprised, even when you think, lights are out, heat is down, you'll be surprised how much you can add to the consumption impact and the savings for your home just by managing the off-peak hours. And again, by having a connected home with data and analytics, it can really help you do that. And that's exactly what Wiser does.
I would chime in too, and Sonia put the link up for the renovation pilot for trained professionals. And I would, depending on the area you're in, look for a building science person, because the one thing with retrofits is unintended consequences. When you do this, the impact is this. A lot of people think that they need to update their furnace first, and then they do their windows after, when the reality is insulation and windows first. Get the home airtight and insulate it and air seal it, and then change your mechanicals. Otherwise, your system is oversized. So definitely consulting a building science person as well is going to help kind of prevent any risks of doing something that you maybe wanted to do first.
And on that note, we have a question from Dan Bouillon. He has a 1929 home, and he said he can't find anybody to give him good advice on even insulating his attic. The contractors are mostly hacks. How do we get some standards? From Sonia, is there, do you have something to help out Dan?
That's a really, really big one. So I did post a link to our Net Zero page where we list all of our Net Zero qualified energy advisors. That's more of the industry page where we guide our builders and renovators to make sure they're working with those folks. But the renovation industry, I mean, as you can imagine, it is full of underground activity with, you know, the guy who has a truck and a hammer. And so what we're really working towards is professionalizing the renovation industry, making sure they have WCB. So if the guy falls off your roof, you don't end up being liable for it. So they've got to have workers' comp, they've got to have insurance. The insurance is what you need to make sure you don't get sued. But ultimately, we need to make sure that these renovators have everything plus all the training on top of it. And so if you can imagine all these really small mom and pop kind of organizations trying to go out there and make a buck doing these renovations, and a lot of them don't have some of the basic things they need. I mean, when we were doing Net Zero renovator training, some of them didn't even have an email address so they could get online to do online training. So it's a big, big, big issue, which is why our program is not geared towards those folks. Our program is geared towards professional renovators who make sure that they're doing the assessment, they can give you the right recommendations, do things in the right order, because absolutely you don't want to do things backwards. Jennifer mentioned you want to start with doing the outside first, making sure the envelope, the insulation, windows, air tightness, all of that's dealt with. You want to do your mechanical systems, so the space heating and cooling, the water heating and cooling, the ventilation, which is critical. You do those, and then that's when you start looking at renewables. Because otherwise you oversize it and you may have a panel system that's way too big for what you actually need. So yeah, so there's recommendations on our webpage for sure, but make sure even on our renovation, if you go to chba.ca under renovations at the top, there's all kinds of great information about how to find a renovator that will do a good job, like how to get a written contract. And it's such great information on our website. I have to say that's one section that I really love on our website.
Okay, this has been a fast and furious conversation, and we've still got lots of questions. We won't be able to get to them all, but Alan, John, Geraldine, and others, we'll try to sift through these and get back to you offline after the discussion. In the last couple minutes we have, if we could go and we'll go in reverse order to shake it up this time. Jennifer, we'll go Jennifer first, and then Sonia, and then David. If you're making a call to action for Canada to get more intentional, stepping up the creation and retrofitting of smart, sustainable homes, what's your call to action?
I'm going to say climate resiliency. Like, we need to make these homes more climate resilient. We need to keep the water out. We need to keep the air in. We need to ventilate them. From a building side, a lot of builders are challenged with this and they think it's complicated and expensive, and it's not. I mean, there are programs through different utilities that will subsidize it and help you get there. Do a model home, talk to other builders. We talk to at different events all the time, sharing lessons learned. Don't do this. Kind of like the don't change your mechanical until you do your windows. But even on the renovation side, once you kind of get those fundamental pieces figured out, but even the climate resiliency detail for trusses and tornado zones and wind loads, like it's not going away. It's going to get worse, and we need to start protecting our housing stock while protecting the environment and the occupants within it with fresh quality air. I mean, people are getting sicker. They need healthy environments to live in. So.
Okay.
Sonia? Yeah, I couldn't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sonia.
Sorry. Mine is actually, I'm a firm believer in every penny you spend is your vote. It's your voice. Elections don't always work. And so for people to listen, put your money where your mouth is. If you want a healthier home, you want a more comfortable home, you want it carbon free, whatever your goal is, you need to do the research and you need to ask for it. Go out and demand, because you know that these houses are available now. You know it's possible. So vote with your dollar and either buy a new one or renovate your home to a deeper energy retrofit, but make sure you do it smart.
David, last word for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I couldn't be more aligned with what both Jennifer and Sonia said, but I'd be thinking about consuming better. I would be thinking about a further call to action that it doesn't have to be, to get to net zero can be a journey. It can happen in phases. So you don't have to think about, breaking the bank and remortgaging just to get there. There are government incentives, both provincially and federally that you can take advantage of to make your home more efficient. Connect the home, and then just think about doing it in phases, though, right? Because a lot of fair comments on the chat that I saw about is this for the wealthy only, etc. And you know what? It can't be. It can't be. This is something that as a society we all need to be thinking about, because as Jennifer astutely said, this is not going away. So thank you.
Well, I'd just like to take this chance to thank all three of you. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom and passion. It's nice to see people out there getting it done and doing it. We're going to be back on October 13th for the final part of this three-part series, leadership discussion on accelerating action for the climate crisis. So really want to thank everyone for attending today. Thank Schneider Electric, and look forward to hopefully seeing many of you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, over and out. Take care, and hope you are on your way to getting a more comfortable, healthier home.
Everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.